It's time for championship case number 9. Yes, 9. We are already at 9 of these things. We do these for all 16 playoff drivers. This is not a prediction. Thankfully, the comments have been listening this year, so I haven't been told about all that this is a prediction. So thank you for listening. Anywho, we are going to talk about Bubba Wallace today, his 2025 season up to this point. Look at the playoffs, look at which tracks fit him, which tracks that they may need to pick up the performance at, and then how he can advance through each round to make the Final Four and win his, in what would be 23XI's first NASCAR Cup Series championship. So Bubba Wallace's 2025 season so far, let's talk about it. Ended a long winless streak, and not only did he end it, he won in one of the biggest races in NASCAR, won the Brickyard 400. 4 top 5s, 10 top 10s, 136 laps led, and 7 playoff points to his name. As I say with everyone else, collect some more playoff points. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter how many you have. Unless you have 500 playoff points, there's no such thing as too many playoff points. So Bubba Wallace at Richmond and Daytona, go win some stages, go win another race. Get some playoff points however you can. He is also in contention for a top 10 position in the regular season standings, which gets you another couple of bonus points. He's currently 11th, so right now he wouldn't get any, but he's only 8 back of 10th, and he's only 34 off of 9th, so I think 9th is the highest he can get. 10th is very realistic as well, so do anything you can to get those playoff points. Let's go into this first round. So, as I said, they don't have a lot of playoff points, and another thing that they have a lot of is DNFs. They have 6 DNFs, which is third, or at least tied for third most in the Cup Series, only behind Ryan Blaney and Cody Ware. So they cannot afford DNFs, whether it's a mechanical DNF, crash, mechanical, whatever it is. They can't afford any DNFs of any sort, especially in these early rounds at any point really, if they don't have the playoff points. So this first round is Darlington, Gateway, and Bristol. Darlington, just a couple of years ago, Bubba Wallace had a 4-race streak of top 10s. Now that streak was snapped last fall at the Southern 500, but of course, if you remember, Bubba Wallace was on pole for that race. He led 37 laps in that race, scored stage points in both stages in that race. I think they were involved in a late race crash. So they had a decent race. It ultimately didn't go their way. The spring, they finished 21st, which isn't pretty for sure, but they've scored stage points in 5 of the last 6 stages at Darlington. As I said, they had that 4-race top 10 streak. They've had good runs here. They're going to be competitive. I think a top 10 is extremely realistic. They qualify well at this track. He's qualified in the top 10 in 5 of the last 6 races here. So I think running up front, qualifying up front, being up front, scoring stage points and scoring his top 10, that would be a great day for that team. I don't know if they're quite capable of contending for the win compared to their teammate Tyler Reddick, to a Kyle Larson, to team owner Denny Hamlin, but I think a top 10 is extremely realistic. I think stage points are extremely realistic, and I think that should be a target for that team that weekend, because if they can collect a lot of points that weekend, it can offset what could potentially happen the next weekend, because Bubba Wallace's Gateway numbers are not pretty. Finishes 21st, 30th, 26th, 0 stage points, 0 laps led. Best qualifying effort was 8th back in 2024, but outside of that, as I said, numbers here are not pretty for Bubba Wallace. Just survive. Don't have a bad day. Don't crash. Don't have an issue. Top 20 finish maybe. I think that's realistic. You don't have the points that you can afford a bad race here. If you were a Christopher Bell, if you were a Denny Hamlin, if you were William Byron, you had all those points, you could probably afford a bad one here. But you don't have those points. You don't have that luxury. You have to put forth a decent effort here. Top 15, just to be safe. I would say a top 15 on top of the top 10 with stage points at Darlington puts you in a pretty good position at Bristol, because other guys will have problems. Now, Bristol statistically has not been a great track for Bubba Wallace, only 2 top 10s. One of those was the top 5. And in fact, last year in the Bristol night race, Bubba Wallace had a fantastic race. Scored stage points in both stages in that race and ended up finishing 3rd. If he can replicate that, I think, that alone on top of the Darlington result, that could get them into the second round. Now, the rest of the results at Bristol are not pretty. 19th in the spring, 29th last spring, 14th in the 2023 fall race, and on and on and on. That only other top 10 was with Richard Petty Motorsports back in 2020. So Bubba Wallace, statistically, the numbers aren't great at Bristol, but if they can replicate what they did last year in this race, I think that in the top 10 at Darlington, that could be enough that they could afford not a horrid race at Gateway, but a meh race, like an 18th place, no stage points race. And if they can get to that second round, this second round actually lines up pretty decent for them. We got New Hampshire, Kansas, and the Roval. Starting off with New Hampshire, he was in a wreck last year, finished 34th in that race, so nothing really to look at there, like in terms of competitiveness. But the two New Hampshire races prior were actually quite good. Scored stage points in both stages back in the 2022 race, went on to finish third in that one, and then once again finished in the top 10 in 2023. Top 10, obviously, I think that's a good result. You'll have people have their problems in this round. I think you'll need a little bit more. You might need a top 10, might need some stage points on top of that. But even if they have a bad race here, I truly believe they can make up for it at the next race at Kansas, where Bubba Wallace won in 2022. Now, I will say his recent results there have not been great. 4 straight finishes outside of the top 15, including a couple in the 30s. Now, one of those was a wreck. But Bubba Wallace has scored a lot of stage points here. As I said, he's won here before. 2311 has seemed a little bit off at this track over the past year or so, really ever since the new Toyota body came out in 2024. But before that, they were the favorites. Kurt Busch won here. Tyler Reddick won here. Bubba won here. Like 3 different 2311 drivers won here. Toyota is always great here. Joe Gibbs Racing is always great here. 2311, even though they've had their struggles, if they can find what they had back in 2022, 2023, Bubba Wallace is going to be a legitimate contender for the win in this race. So that at worst is a top 5 day. That's some stage points. But they got to find what they had back in 23 and 22, because since then, they've missed the mark at Kansas in the last few races. And that's going to be a problem this time of year. They have to perform at this race. If they can put forth a decent effort at New Hampshire, top 10 maybe, some stage points, top 5 at Kansas, that should put them in somewhat safe position heading into the Roval. But even at the Roval, Bubba Wallace, who has struggled at the road courses in his career up until a couple years ago, he just scored a top 10 at Watkins Glen. And in fact, top 10s in 2 of his last 3 starts at the Roval, including some stage points as well. As I said, even if they have an off New Hampshire, and as I said, they've performed at New Hampshire too, if they can string some results here together, they could get to the round of 8. That's a big deal for this 23 team. And the round of 8 isn't really that bad for him either. He scored a top 5 at Vegas back in 2023. He led 20 laps in the spring race, finished 4th in both stages. Ultimately, he ended up finishing 28th. But they've shown speed at Vegas before. They've run up front at Vegas before. Tyler Reddick has almost won at Vegas before. Remember, Tyler Reddick in the 2024 spring race, he was trying to chase down Kyle Larson. Well, who was right there helping him, drafting him, pushing him to the front? Bubba Wallace. Teamwork was in effect there. The 23 team, they are very good at Vegas. They don't have a lot of points in this round, assuming they don't go on some 2011 Tony Stewart hot streak. If it comes down to a must-win, it might have to happen early. It might have to happen at Vegas, but I think it's possible. I think Bubba Wallace could very well go out and win at Vegas. His Talladega numbers aren't bad either. He won there back in 2023 for his and 2311's first win in the Cup Series. He scored top 10s in the last 2 races, including a stage win back in the spring. So he's a good super speedway racer. He could very well go out and win this one, but the randomness of Talladega, he could be involved in a crash. He can't afford a crash because of the lack of playoff points. So as I said, with the lack of playoff points, that complicates this round, and it may come down to a must-win, and I would lean the first 2 races in the round. But his Martinsville numbers aren't that bad either. Like a 3rd in the spring, a 4th last spring. He's never finished outside of the top 15. Or I'm sorry, he has 2 finishes outside the top 15. I can't read. At Martinsville in the next-gen car, top 5s, top 10s, even a few laps led, stage points. Like, once again, I think it's going to be really hard to beat Blaney, to beat Elliott, Hamlin, those guys. So that's why I'm leaning more on the front end of this round if it comes down to a must win. You may not know it at the time, but I think they got to know in their mind they have to win. So I think a Vegas or a Talladega is very much the better opportunity for them. Long shot points-wise, I would say, is you got to top 5 every race in this round and score a good chunk of stage points to advance. Who knows? Then when it comes to Phoenix, you never know. They're going to be an underdog in this race, no matter who makes the Final Four. Unless the Final Four is like Cody Ware, SVG, Bubba, and I was going to say Josh Berry. That's a Penske car. The more than likely case is Bubba Wallace is going to be an underdog in this race, in this championship race, if he makes it there. And he's had a couple of good Phoenix outings. He had a top 10 back in last fall's race, but top 10 is probably not going to do it for you in this race. You're going to have to lead laps. You're going to have to potentially win the race. He's only led 4 laps at Phoenix. Numbers don't back him at Phoenix, but as I said, in this format, you never know what could happen at this race. You never know what could happen. If they're the only Toyota in that Final Four, all the attention's going to be focused on them. That's going to help them out. So to wrap it up real quickly, a couple sentences as always. First round and second round, you can't afford really bad races. You can't afford a DNF or anything, but the first round, I think they got a good shot of getting out of. Second round, if they can have really good runs at Kansas and the Roval, and even New Hampshire, obviously, I think they can advance. And then the round of 8 is the tricky round because of the lack of playoff points, but they're capable of winning at Vegas. I would say they're capable of winning at Talladega. And even if they don't win and they finish top 5, top 3, score stage points, if they can do what they did in the spring at Martinsville, who knows? So thanks for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. We got the NASCAR Truck Night in America tonight. Regular season finale. So hopefully it's fun. Hopefully it's exciting. Then tomorrow we got the Cup race at Richmond. But thanks for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I will see you guys in the next one. At the latest, tomorrow night, we'll restart these championship cases next week.